Hi, my name is Gregor Stühler. I'm the co-founder and CEO of scoutbee, and today I'm speaking with Dave Ingram, Chief Procurement Officer of Unilever. And well, it's great to speak with you, Dave.
Hey, hi Gregor. Very happy to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time. And yeah, Dave, maybe just to get right into it, could you please tell us a little bit about your background and your quite long career at Unilever?
Yeah, too long. 30 years. I started when I was very young, obviously. In the UK. So I worked for a company called Birds Eye Walls at the time in the UK. Spent about 10 years there, and then went to Mexico, running Mexico country and the Caribbean for sales. Then to Holland for 4 years, doing a global job, and then to North Asia, China, Shanghai based, for about 6 years, and before coming down here to Singapore, where I am currently based, and for the last 2 years doing the chief procurement role.
That's quite impressive. Just as a side question, do you think your international experience is helping you with the current role?
Yeah, undoubtedly. I've had the joy and pleasure of working in, living in, working with amazing different people, and that I think appreciation of diversity and how you include different people in different discussions really helps open your eyes to what's already available within Unilever, but also now in this job what's available outside of Unilever. I think we're on a sort of big journey of recognizing that the partnership opportunity for us across all of our business, top line, middle of the company's performance, and bottom line, really will come from partnerships.
I couldn't agree more. And well, that leads beautifully also in the follow-up question. Could you describe actually the direction of travel for procurement at Unilever, and what are at the moment the main initiatives in progress there?
Yeah, we've redefined our strategy in the last 2 years, and we talk about procurement with purpose, which is buying responsibly, buying better, and growing together with our partners. Buying responsibly is obviously about our carbon, nature, and social commitments, which, because we touch and work with about 3 to 4 million people in our value chain behind Unilever, through about 55,000 suppliers. We work on directly around 3 million hectares of land through our supply base. So our impact from a climate, greenhouse gas, and nature, land, conservation and regeneration, and a social inclusion really does come through procurement, and that first pillar. Buying better is obviously the very core of what procurement does in terms of developing winning strategies for our businesses to perform and win in every single marketplace we operate. And growing together, as I mentioned at the top of the program, the partnership program for us is absolutely critical, both for top line growth and innovation partnerships, as well as reach, white spaces, as well as profitability, and finding new mechanisms, new propositions to change our value chain. And I guess at the core of that is the digital agenda that every company is going through, and we are also. And I think that's going to be critical to our success. We're quite a complex company in the sense that we operate in multiple countries across multiple business groups, with, as I mentioned, multiple partners in the supply base. You can only do that effectively and efficiently through digital means and automation means, and operating in a new way with data that is much more available and leads to insight far quicker than it's done in the past.
Yeah, very much agree. It feels like, especially in that area, and maybe also in particular for fast-moving consumer goods, that digitalization can actually supercharge certain initiatives that might have been in place already for a while, but couldn't be meaningfully executed just because of the diversity of data and probably the data points also scattered around the globe in different systems, etc. So
I think that's very true. I think and COVID, in a non-surprising way, has accelerated our implementation of, our commitment to, and our use of data and insight and analytical tools over the last 12 to 18 months, because it's the speed of change, particularly on the procurement side of sourcing, has been so dynamic. You move from a China issue in January of 2020, you think you're moving to another country that's safe and secure in terms of supply, and obviously this virus then goes across the world, and you find that you're changing sourcing dynamically all the time. You can only do that if your knowledge of demand, of supply opportunities is immediately available to our buyers.
Very much agree. And there was also the one of the main support mechanisms that we actually gave to our customers during the global pandemic, where we supported customers very, very actively to move supply from China to India and then from India back to China, simply trying to be as agile and fast as possible, as there was precedent's case. And on that note, Unilever has been working with scoutbee now for quite a while. So what led you to explore AI-driven supplier discovery?
Yeah, look, I think we initiated this near the start of COVID, Q1 or Q2 of last year, and it's been a fantastic journey for us because it's given us a huge visibility of the market fast, and that's of course what we've required at its very basic level. But of course, it's given us much more than that. I think it's given us an ability to assure and accredit suppliers faster than we've done before, in a more consistent and holistic way than we've done before. So, the full proposition of scoutbee in terms of market visibility, finding new people fast, and interacting and engaging them in a safe way and assured way fast, has been really critical for us. There's loads of stats, but if you just take the collaborative manufacturing journey alone, I don't think we would have reacted as well and as fast as we did without access to the visibility we gained through scoutbee. US alone, we added something like 120 new collaborative manufacturing partners in the space of a few months. Now, we would have never done that in a normal manual world pre-COVID.
Makes, of course, me and of course Scoutbee also particularly proud that we were able to help you with that endeavor so quickly. Thanks for the kind words. And then, as a follow-up question, for which types of use cases have platforms like scoutbee made the most difference for you at Unilever?
Yeah, well, look, of course, we initiated this in a world where resilience was our primary driver. So finding alternatives to broken chains or countries which couldn't manufacture or ship, or logistics systems which were clogged and jammed. So resilience has been at the very top of that value equation in the immediate term. But I think what we're finding more and more, is that it moves then into value creation, top line growth, innovation. Top line growth for us comes from both service improvement through more resilient supply chains and innovation, which we get internally and externally. So value creation from bringing competitive advantage in innovation has also been really key for us through these sort of systems. I think the other interesting area that we wanted to develop into is how does it help us manage the ecosystems of partnerships, because life for us has moved on from one-on-one relationships that we have into multiple relationships to get a product to a consumer in the right place at the right time and at the right cost with the right purpose. And we're in to see where these tools can bring us in terms of that ecosystem management, I think, more for the future.
Yeah, very much agree. And we see that in particular, obviously, with Unilever. And also the pandemic was showing a little bit that resilience is not really disaster response, right? So resilience means that you, in a certain way, can act faster than the market or than your competition to a certain event. But the pressure is on constantly. So constantly, obviously, competitors are finding more efficient ways, cheaper ways, more sustainable ways to partner. And in particular, on the sustainability level, we also on our scoutbee side, we see that options at hand and multiple choices at hand definitely also increase the chance to pick a more sustainable solution. So,
and let's get to the middle of our pillars. Better bought solutions, lower cost solutions as well. So that opportunity to find alternatives. And also to challenge ourselves. You know, sometimes we were so strict with a specification or requirement that we excluded a lot of potential partners to come on board, and we excluded some opportunity for us to save. We've stretched that thinking in the last 12 to 18 months inside our own business. So I do think that there's opportunity, and you're right. I mean, we're not through the pandemic in its entirety, but certainly compared to last Q2 and Q3, it feels a little bit calmer in terms of management. But this is the time to continue to look for alternatives, improve our resilience, and do it in a measured, structured way. And we have a program to do that. We have a resilience team and what we call a resilience tower set up. And that's still a really strong part of our agenda over the next 6, 9, 12 months.
Yeah, I'll prove one more time that Unilever is ahead of the game here, and leads me also to my question number 5. Unilever is, as you already just mentioned, of course, at the forefront when it comes to sustainability and supply chains. And if I might call you like that, you are a visionary in this area. How can platforms like scoutbee support you in this?
Look, I think that there are opportunities, and there's probably things that you're working on that we're not aware of. If you look at what our agenda is, and then you can sort of have a sense of what you're doing that may link to that. What's happening in the FMCG industry is the consumer is demanding radical transparency and radical traceability. They will want to know. They want to know now, but more will want to know very soon. Carbon footprint of product, nature footprint of product, social footprint of product, and we're working in many of our chains in quite complex chains, where there are 7 or 8 people, let's say, from a farm that might be harvesting palm or soy or tea, through to us actually selling it to a retailer. There'll be quite a number of steps in between there. So transparency of that at the moment is not clear enough for the consumer. It's something we are driving very strongly. We have recommitted in January of this year to a deforestation-free supply chain across our key commodities. You can only be truly deforestation-free if you understand the first mile of your sourcing. Which farmer, which field, which landscape, what's the history of that landscape? Was it deforested? Was it protected? Has that product then come through the system and been blended with, let's say, bad product, or is it being pure through the system? So we're doing a lot of work with a variety of people, Google Earth Engine, Orbital Insight, Google Cloud, Scout Lab, SAP Tech Stack. And I think this is where it's never going to be one player that's can cover this, but this area of transparency, traceability in these complex chains, and how do we look at that as one, I think is a really interesting area for companies like yourselves. And how do you then connect up from an environmental perspective, from an ESG and an assurance perspective? How do you then potentially connect the industry up and create value from that point of view?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I also like your term tech stack. It's also not a very common term in procurement. And I also see the trend just in any other department that procurement tech stack philosophy will be needed to go away from those very static monoliths that you roll out over decades and keeps you away from new innovations that are popping up. It's absolutely needed that solutions in the future are fully integrated and ideally also solving a certain purpose within an area in a way better, more meaningful way.
Yeah, it's where these ecosystems come back in as, the solution. Exactly to your point, the solutions are not coming from one mega company that take years to roll out. It's about an ecosystem of individual brilliance. But they're so deep in their brilliance that you need to stack these things together as solutions and as companies. And I think how you create visibility to those ecosystems and bring them together is a really interesting unresolved stack or technology solution in itself right now.
Yes.
So I think there's an opportunity there.
Absolutely. And today, in the future, hopefully even more of that, scoutbee also tries to be, at least in the very early time of the supplier-buyer relationship, the data connector, so that there don't have to be 10, 15 data providers, but ideally one point of contact. And I think those, as we said, those integrated platforms that are connecting the dots worldwide will be more important in the future when the industry finally really moves into a best-of-breed setup where departments like HR, marketing, sales, production, etc., are actually already working in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm keen to ask, how does Unilever measure its success or competitiveness on a portfolio buying level today?
Yeah, frequently is the first. The world we live in is so dynamic. Our commodity markets, you look on Bloomberg or News anytime, you're seeing most of these commodity markets at 10-year highs, at least, if not unprecedented highs, with movement year on year on many commodities in the 70-80% sort of range. So inflation is extremely high. When it comes down to it as a business, we believe and we measure ourselves as a business on what we call 4G growth. So that's growth which is competitive, profitable, consistent, and importantly, responsible. Now, when you think that's the business value equation, that's how Nitin and Alan will measure themselves. It's not just good enough that we're profitable, we have to be more profitable than the competition. We have to deliver that consistently quarter on quarter. It's not about having, ups and downs. And of course, it's about doing it responsibly. And we need all 4Gs for us to give long-term value to our stakeholders. So procurement sits at the center of so much of that in terms of buying better, buying more competitively, having strategies which are better than anyone else. Sustainably going forward, consistently. It's not about getting big cash sums in one quarter, 1 year, and then not seeing the same the next year. And of course, it's about doing that responsibly. So our buyers are measured very simply on buying performance versus the marketplace, buying responsibly, so achieving our goals depending on which area of the business they're in. That will either be a goal in terms of implementation of greenhouse gases of deforestation-free or increasingly now social. So our first social commitments come out this year, and our buyers connected with the elements of the business that we've committed to this year, they'll have social in their targets. So the value equation for a buyer is the money he's delivering for the bottom line, how responsibly he's doing that. And for many of our buyers, it will also be around the innovation they're bringing in from the marketplace. So how they're bringing opportunities for innovation, particularly our divisional colleagues, which is a primary part of their role.
That is groundbreaking. You know that better than I do, but procurement in many other companies today is still reduced to one KPI, and that's hard savings. And you just said, if I understood it correctly, that today, even a purchaser today even are measured on things like sustainability, carbon footprint, etc., on their annual targets and bonus program.
Yeah. For, as we roll that out. So, as an example, we put an immediate commitment for our collaborative manufacturing contracts that we sign up to be on a living wage basis. So, our buyers who are buying collaborative manufacturing relationships, who are involved in those relationships, have got to then be hitting that as a KPI within their targets.
Wow. Yeah, groundbreaking. As I mentioned, it's a pleasure to listen to you here, Dave, and I hope that many other companies will follow that example to roll this out also in the future. Sorry.
It's probably important to say that a third of every employee's long-term bonus is linked around sustainability in Unilever.
Wow.
So many companies are moving in that direction, that long-term bonuses are. We've had that for, I think, the last 8 or 9 years at least. And I think it does help bring people together on a common agenda, and even deeper, actually, common values within the business, that we know that it's not just something one team is trying to do.
Yeah.
And that it's a corporate commitment that actually impacts all of us when we achieve it.
Absolutely agree. And as you mentioned before, procurement has such a high impact on that. As you said, I don't have the final numbers anymore in my head, but around about 50,000 suppliers, millions of people in the supply chain. So a decision on the procurement end actually has a snowball effect. And on top of that, procurement, however, at least in many other companies today, is not yet elevated to talk on the same level, such as sales, marketing, production. And procurement today is not yet the spider in the net, what it should be. As they are connecting external and internal stakeholders, they are responsible if an innovative supplier or solution is actually brought into the system or not. And I think that is underrepresented in today's procurement landscape. And FMCG is actually quite progressive here already compared to other industries, right?
I think it is actually. I know quite a few of my colleagues across the FMCG side of procurement network are the businesses that are in the same similar commitment spaces, similar bonus connection spaces, and their procurement functions are deeply engaged in sustainability. So there are a few out there who we really appreciate, because this journey, particularly on that sustainability side, is not something companies can do alone and can do really sustainably, and certainly the impact is much greater if we do it as an industry or even wider.
Very much agree. Fingers crossed that we are moving forward on that level. And good moment also to go to our last question. Speaking about elevating procurement, in your experience, do you think that technology can elevate procurement and drive internal innovation and collaboration across the organization?
Yeah, look, I think the tech stack within procurement has moved dramatically from being let's say, a procure-to-pay large-scale automation tool into being a value-adding buyer tool. And by that I mean helping give insight on innovation through solutions like yourselves in terms of accessing new people, so bringing insight to innovation. There's some really good tech I mentioned already around sustainability and ensuring if not our absolute traceability, then the risk management of our sourcing through tech and through eye in the sky tech and geopositioning tech and mapping technologies and how they all stack together. But also in terms of, what's the buyer toolkit look like? And we've got a team internally been doing a lot of work on the buyer console, which allows them not just the data and information about what spend they need, what demand they need to be sourcing against and who they source out with and what the contracts are, but insight into what's the competitive nature of the world around us through different data and analytics solutions that are being fed into the console. So an example of that would be port information tracking globally, which we do to look at pricing and location of flows of commodities going into different ports. So many countries stipulate that you have to put, source of material code and price on a public manifest that's available, let's say, to all. So we have tools that track that and retain that information, and then bring to a buyer, look, company X is sourcing from location Y at this price of import. They may have changed location of source, which will be interesting to us. They may have bought more volume, which is interesting to us. So the tech stacks are getting us that information much more dynamically. So the buyer, when he's making a call on a particular contract or negotiation, has all of that insight. So, that's where they can really then go to our business teams and say, okay, look, what's the pricing scenario over the next 6-9 months? What's the competitive nature that's publicly available that we've got insight to? What's the supply structures we see happening? As well, of course, as our own, positioning in terms of hedging, etc. So it's undoubtedly going to be, and this is, many companies will have been using e-tendering over the last 5 years, and I think that that's still a part of the procurement tech engine. That these, what I'll call value-adding insight engines, I think are really interesting, and are going to game change us going forward.
I couldn't agree more. And in particular, as you have already stressed out, procurement is very, very diverse, even in singular companies. So a purchaser being responsible for a certain commodity needs a completely different tech stack and insight stack compared to a person that is responsible to acquire or purchase worker gloves, for example. And
no, it's nice having the diversity, and it's important to recognise the diversity, but it's also important to recognise the commonality.
Yeah, I agree.
So when I arrived a couple of years ago, I was astounded by, for the same reasons, I was astounded by two of our portfolios, which have done amazing work: how we buy PAM and how we buy IT. And they're very different things, obviously. They're different change, but the quality of work going into both, actually, there was a lot of learning between the two. So it's important to understand what's common as much as what's uncommon between our portfolios, and then leverage the best of both of those worlds.
Very well said, Dave. I couldn't agree more on that. And I think that was it for the day. And Dave, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you today. you shared such valuable insights and advice, I think relevant for many teams and companies. So many thanks for taking the time, and I genuinely hope that we can catch up in person then this summer, really soon. Thank you.
No, I hope so. Look, as I said to you sort of privately last week when we caught up, the team inside Unilever had done a presentation about your business to us a couple of weeks ago at UPLT, and maybe it's important to say to all your colleagues, there was a very positive feedback from our business and our teams and our leadership team about the responsiveness, the insight we're now getting, how you as a company have reacted and given that insight. So just a big thanks also. You know, our journeys are a collection of our partnerships, and we value each and every one of those. So thanks to you and the full team at scoutbee.
Thank you, Dave. We're very much looking forward to the future, of course, with you together. And again, thank you so much, and hope to catch up soon.
Cheers.